You tried to break me, but I broke your plan.
The bourbon burned, but not as much as finding out your wife thinks you're too stupid to notice she's been screwing her business consultant for 6 months. I sat in my truck outside Murphy's bar, staring at the text message I'd accidentally seen when Tessa left her phone on the kitchen counter. Brandon, can't wait for tonight. Jesse's working late again. Perfect timing. Room 247 like usual. Room 247 like usual. The words hit harder than the sledgehammer that fell on my foot last Tuesday. 6 months. How many late nights at the shop had I actually spent fixing cabinets while my wife was getting her cardio workout somewhere else? I'm Jesse Keller, 37 years old, owner of Keller Custom Carpentry. Built it from nothing after dropping out of college to support Tessa through business school. Funny how that worked out. She got her degree, I got calloused hands and a cheating wife. The phone buzzed again. Already there. You're incredible, baby. Baby. She hadn't called me that in 2 years. I knocked back the bourbon and started the truck. Time to see just how incredible my wife really was. Tessa's gym sat on the corner of Main and Fifth, all glass and chrome and motivational quotes painted on walls. Transform your life stretched across the front window in pink letters. She'd transformed something, all right. I parked behind the dumpster and watched through the back window. Tessa stood in her office, phone pressed to her ear, that fake smile she used with difficult clients. But this wasn't business. Her free hand traced patterns on the desk, the way she used to touch my chest when we first met. Just sign the contract, she said, voice carrying through the thin walls. I'll handle Jesse later. He won't even know what hit him. Handle me later, like I was some loose end to tie up. I'd built this place for her, literally. Every piece of trim, every cabinet, every last shelf. Worked 16-hour days for 3 months straight while she picked out equipment and hired trainers. She said we were partners. Turns out I was just free labor. The door opened and Brandon Hart walked in. 41, consultant for small businesses with growth potential, which apparently included sleeping with the owner's wife. He wore a $500 suit and the kind of confidence that came from never working with your hands. They embraced like lovers in a movie. I wanted to punch through the window, but that would have been stupid. Instead, I grabbed my phone and started recording. Did you bring the papers? Tessa asked. Right here. Brandon pulled out a folder. Once Jesse signs these, you'll have controlling interest in the business. Then we can liquidate the shop, sell the equipment, put the money into expanding the gym. My shop, the one I'd spent 15 years building from a single workbench in my garage. He'll never sign, Tessa said. He will, if he thinks he's protecting his precious daughter. Brandon's laugh made my skin crawl. Riley's college fund, remember? We'll tell him it's an investment opportunity. He trusts you. Trusted. Past tense. As of about 30 seconds ago. They kissed again, hands roaming places that used to be mine. I'd seen enough. Time to go home and pretend everything was normal while I figured out how to destroy them both. The house felt different when you knew it was built on lies. 16 years of marriage, reduced to a woman counting down the minutes until she could get rid of you. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the contract Brandon had mentioned. Somehow, it had appeared in our stack of bills, mixed in with the electric and water like it belonged there. Riley came downstairs, backpack slung over her shoulder. 16 years old, and smarter than both her parents combined. She had my eyes and Tessa's stubborn streak, which usually meant trouble. Dad, you look like heck. Thanks, sweetheart. Really boosts a man's confidence. She grabbed an apple from the counter. Mom's not home again? Working late. Uh-huh. Riley's tone suggested she knew exactly what kind of work Tessa was doing. Dad, can I ask you something? Go ahead. If someone you trusted was lying to you, would you want to know? The question hit like a gut punch. Did she know about the affair? Depends on the lie, I guess. A big one. The kind that changes everything. I met her eyes. Then yes. I'd want to know. She nodded and headed for the door. Just remember, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you most. After she left, I examined the contract more carefully. Investment opportunity, just like Brandon had said. $50,000 for a partnership expansion that would give Tessa 60% control of my business. All I had to do was sign on the dotted line and trust my loving wife to handle the details. The papers were professionally prepared, full of legal language designed to confuse someone who never went to law school. But I'd been reading contracts for 15 years. Hidden in the fine print was a clause that would let Tessa dissolve the partnership at any time, keeping all assets. My phone buzzed. Text from Tessa. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. I poured another bourbon and called my oldest friend. Cody's phone repair. You break it, I'll make it worse. It's Jesse. Well, if it isn't the Sawdust King himself, what's got you calling at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday? Cody Mitchell had been my friend since high school. He fixed phones and computers out of a strip mall downtown, but he knew more about technology than most people with actual degrees. If I needed to catch a cheating wife, he was the guy to call. I need your help with something, and it's not legal advice. The best kind. Come on over. Cody's shop smelled like solder and energy drinks. Circuit boards covered every surface, and at least 3 computers hummed in the background. He looked up from a disassembled iPhone, gray beard streaked with whatever he'd eaten for dinner. You look terrible. What happened? I told him everything, the text messages, the conversation at the gym, the contract. By the time I finished, he was shaking his head. Man, that's cold. Even for someone married to Tessa. You never liked her. She never liked me either, so we're even. But this Brandon guy, he sounds like a real piece of work. I need to know everything. Phone records, credit cards, bank statements. Can you help me? Cody cracked his knuckles. Can I help? Jesse, my friend, you just asked a computer nerd to legally stalk someone who deserves it. This is Christmas morning. He pulled out a laptop and started typing. First things first, we need access to her accounts. Any idea what passwords she uses? Try Riley's birthday. 30 seconds later, he was in. Bingo! Your wife's not big on digital security. The credit card statements told the story. Motel charges every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months. Dinners at expensive restaurants I'd never been to. A jewelry store purchase for $800. I'd never seen any jewelry. Look at this, Cody said, pointing at the screen. She's been transferring money to a business account. $5,000 here, $3,000 there. Says it's for gym expansion. But check this out. He pulled up bank records for Brandon's consulting firm. Every transfer from Tessa went straight into the account, then got moved again within 24 hours. Most of it ended up in Brandon's personal checking. He's stealing from her, I said. And she's stealing from you. Beautiful, isn't it? I stared at the numbers. $37,000 over 6 months. Money from our joint savings, money I'd earned building cabinets and fixing houses. There's more, Cody said. He opened another window. Brandon Hart, age 41. Divorced twice. Currently under investigation by the state licensing board for ethics violations. Apparently he's been running this scam on other small business owners. The picture became clear. Brandon seduced married women, convinced them to invest in fake expansion plans, then disappeared with the money. Except this time, he'd gotten greedy. Why steal $30,000 when you could take the whole business? I need copies of everything, I said, way ahead of you. Cody handed me a flash drive. Every transaction, every email, every dirty photo she sent to Loverboy. There are photos. Oh yeah, your wife's got a real artistic streak. Want to see them? God, no. Smart man. So what's the plan? I thought about it. Tessa and Brandon had played this perfectly. She'd get me to sign the contract, then claim I was mentally unstable when I found out about the affair. Brandon would help her liquidate the business, they'd split the money, and I'd be left with nothing. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, I said. Meaning? I'm going to sign the contract. Cody stared at me. Have you lost your mind? No, but they're about to think I have. The next morning, I called Tessa and told her I'd looked over the investment papers. She tried to hide the excitement in her voice when I said I wanted to discuss it over dinner. We made reservations at Antonio's, the same restaurant where she'd been eating with Brandon. I spent the day in my shop, working on a cabinet for Mrs. Patterson down the street. The smell of sawdust and wood stain usually calmed me, but today I couldn't concentrate. Every board I cut reminded me that Tessa wanted to sell this place. 15 years of work, reduced to dollar signs in some a-hole's business plan. Riley stopped by after school like she always did. She grabbed a Coke from the mini fridge and perched on my workbench. Mom seems happy today, she said. Yeah? Singing in the shower, picking out her best dress. Either you're taking her somewhere really nice or she's meeting someone else. I looked at my daughter, 16 years old, and she already understood her mother better than I did. Riley, what do you know about your mom's business trips? You mean her trips to the Sunset Motel with Brandon? The question hit like a slap. How long have you known? 3 months. I saw them together at the coffee shop downtown. She told him she loved him. Riley's voice was flat, matter of fact. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. Why didn't you say something? Because I knew you'd blame yourself. You always do. She hopped off the workbench. Dad, whatever you're planning, just remember that some people don't deserve your loyalty. That evening, I put on my best shirt and drove to Antonio's. Tessa was already there, looking beautiful in a red dress I'd never seen before. Probably bought it with my money. You look handsome, she said, kissing my cheek. You look expensive. She laughed like I'd made a joke. We ordered wine and made small talk about Riley's grades and the weather. Finally, she brought up the contract. Did you have a chance to review the investment opportunity? I did. $50,000 for a partnership expansion. Sounds legitimate. It really is. Brandon's worked with dozens of small businesses. He has an incredible track record. I'll bet he does. What exactly would the partnership involve? Well, you'd maintain creative control of the carpentry side, but I'd handle the business operations, marketing, finances, expansion planning. It would free you up to focus on what you love. And Brandon would oversee everything. He'd provide consulting services. Yes, Jesse, this could change our lives. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her wedding ring caught the candlelight, and for a moment I remembered why I'd fallen in love with her. Beautiful, ambitious, full of dreams. When did those dreams stop, including me? There's just one thing, I said. What's that? I want to meet with Brandon first, face to face. If I'm trusting him with my business, I need to know who he is. Tessa's smile flickered. That's not really necessary. I mean, I've already vetted him thoroughly. I'm sure you have, but this is my shop we're talking about. 15 years of work. I need to look the man in the eye. Of course, I'll set something up. Tomorrow night, at the gym after closing, just the three of us. Tomorrow might be too soon. Tessa, I squeezed her hand. If this deal is as good as you say it is, there's no reason to wait. She agreed, but I could see the wheels turning. How could she explain to Brandon that her husband wanted a meeting? What excuse would she give for rushing the timeline? The next evening, I arrived at the gym 15 minutes early. The parking lot was empty except for Tessa's BMW and a silver Mercedes that probably belonged to Brandon. I sat in my truck and waited. At exactly 7 o'clock, I walked through the front door. Tessa stood behind the reception desk, more nervous than I'd seen her in years. Brandon emerged from the office, hand extended, like we were old friends. Jesse, great to finally meet you. Tessa's told me so much about your work. Brandon Hart looked exactly like I'd imagined. Perfect haircut, perfect teeth, perfect handshake. The kind of man who'd never had sawdust under his fingernails or calluses on his palms. All good, I hope. Absolutely. Your reputation as a craftsman is impressive. I think we can really take things to the next level. We sat at a table near the front window. Brandon spread out charts and graphs that meant nothing to me, talking about market penetration and growth opportunities. Tessa nodded along like she understood any of it. The initial investment is modest, Brandon said, but the returns could be substantial. Within 2 years, we're projecting a 300% increase in revenue. That sounds optimistic. Conservative, actually. I've seen businesses like yours explode once they implement the right strategies. And what strategies are those? Brandon leaned forward. Efficiency, automation, scaling operations to meet demand. Right now, you're limited by the number of hours you can personally work. But with the right systems in place, you could have multiple crews operating simultaneously. Multiple crews means multiple salaries. Short-term expense, long-term profit. Tessa understands the numbers. I looked at my wife. She was staring at Brandon with the same expression she used to reserve for me. Jesse, she said, this really is an amazing opportunity. Brandon's helped so many businesses reach their potential. I'm sure he has. I pulled out the contract and set it on the table. I've reviewed the paperwork. It looks straightforward. Brandon's eyes lit up. Excellent. Do you have any questions about the terms? Just one. The dissolution clause on page 7. It says either partner can terminate the agreement with 30 days' notice. What happens to the business if that occurs? Well, the assets would be distributed according to ownership percentage. Since you'd retain 40%, I'd lose the shop. Not lose, exactly. You'd receive fair market value for your share. Determined by whom? An independent appraiser, of course. Of course, probably one of Brandon's friends who'd value my 15 years of work at whatever number suited their needs. Here's what I don't understand, I said. You're asking me to put $50,000 into a business I already own, then give my wife controlling interest. What do I get out of it? Financial growth, reduced workload, more time with your family? And what do you get? Brandon's smile never wavered. A consulting fee, 20% of net profits for the first 2 years, 20% of my money, 20% of increased revenue that wouldn't exist without proper business development. I picked up a pen and held it over the signature line. Tessa held her breath. Brandon leaned back in his chair, trying to look casual. You know what? I said. I need to think about this a little more. The disappointment in the room was palpable. Tessa's face fell. Brandon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Jesse, Tessa said, opportunities like this don't come around often. I understand that, but this is a big decision. I want to sleep on it. Brandon nodded like he understood, but his eyes had gone cold. Of course. Take all the time you need. But I do have other clients interested in similar partnerships. I can't hold the offer indefinitely. How long do I have? Let's say 48 hours. After that, I'll need to explore other options. 48 hours. Just enough time for them to panic and make mistakes. I stood up and shook Brandon's hand again. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. My pleasure. I look forward to working together. Tessa walked me to the parking lot. Jesse, what's wrong? This deal could set us up for life. Maybe, or maybe it could ruin us. You don't trust me. I looked at my wife standing in the parking lot of the gym I'd built for her, defending the man she was sleeping with. I trust you, Tessa. I'm just not sure you trust me. That night, I called Cody. How did it go? Perfect. They're desperate now. 48 hours to sign or the deal disappears. What's the next move? We give them something to really panic about. I'm listening. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Brandon's office. Tell his secretary that you're from the state licensing board and you need to schedule an interview regarding complaints filed against his consulting practice. That's illegal. No, it's not. You're not impersonating a government official. You're just someone who works for the state licensing board. I don't work for the state licensing board. You could. They're always hiring. Cody laughed. You're evil. I like it. Then at noon, you're going to send an anonymous email to the gym's business account. Tell them someone's been asking questions about their financial records, and they might want to check their insurance coverage. And what will you be doing? Having lunch with my daughter. The next morning, I picked Riley up from school and took her to the diner downtown. She ordered a cheeseburger and fries. I got coffee and tried to figure out how to tell your 16-year-old daughter that her mother was a lying, cheating criminal. You look nervous, Riley said. I need to tell you something about your mom. That she's screwing Brandon Hart? Yeah, I know. I nearly choked on my coffee. How? Dad, I've known for months. I see things, I hear things, plus Mom's not as sneaky as she thinks she is. Why didn't you say anything? Riley shrugged. What was I supposed to say? Your wife's a cheater and your business partner's a con man? I figured you'd figure it out eventually. Business partner? Brandon Hart. He's been talking to Mom about taking over your shop, selling the equipment, liquidating the inventory, using the money to expand the gym. How do you know all this? I listen at doors. It's a useful skill when your parents think you're stupid. I stared at my daughter. 16 years old, and she'd been protecting me without me even knowing it. Riley, your mom and I might be getting divorced. Good. You deserve better than someone who lies to your face every day. It might get messy. Court battles, lawyers, splitting up everything we own. Dad, half of nothing is still nothing, and Mom's going to take everything anyway if you don't fight back. She was right. Tessa and Brandon had played their cards perfectly, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the Sawdust King. My phone buzzed. Text from Cody, mission accomplished. Brandon's secretary called him 3 times in the last hour. He sounds panicked. Perfect. Riley, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to record a conversation. That evening, I told Tessa I was ready to sign the contract. The relief on her face was almost heartbreaking. She called Brandon immediately and arranged another meeting for that night. Riley hid in the gym's storage room with her phone, recording everything through the thin walls. I arrived with the signed contract and a check for $50,000. Excellent choice, Brandon said, reviewing the paperwork. You won't regret this. I hope not. Tessa poured champagne to celebrate our new partnership. We toasted to success and growth and all the lies that made this moment possible. So what happens next? I asked. Well, I'll need access to your business accounts, Brandon said. Bank statements, tax records, client lists, complete financial transparency, of course. And we'll want to begin liquidating non-essential assets immediately. Some of your older equipment could be sold to fund more efficient alternatives. My grandfather's workbench? If it's not generating revenue, it's taking up valuable space. I nodded like this made sense. What about my employees? We'll evaluate each position for efficiency. Some might need to be eliminated. Eliminated? Downsized? Right-sized? It's just business, Jesse. Tessa reached over and squeezed my hand. It might seem scary now, but Brandon knows what he's doing. I'm sure he does. Brandon slid the contract into his briefcase. I'll file these papers tomorrow morning. Within 30 days, you'll start seeing dramatic changes in your operation. Dramatic changes. Got it. We shook hands and said goodbye. Tessa kissed my cheek and told me how proud she was of my decision. I drove home and waited for Riley. She arrived 20 minutes later, eyes bright with excitement. Did you get it all? Every word. Dad, they're planning to sell your shop next week. What? Riley played the recording. After I'd left, Tessa and Brandon had discussed their timeline. The business would be liquidated within 7 days. The proceeds would be split 60-40, with Brandon taking the larger share for his consulting services. There's more, Riley said. Mom's been talking to a divorce lawyer. She's filing papers next Friday. How do you know that? I hacked her email. Riley, Dad, they're trying to steal everything you've worked for. I figured we could break a few rules. I listened to the rest of the recording. Tessa and Brandon discussed their future together, their plans to move to Florida once the divorce was finalized. They laughed about how easy it had been to fool the simple carpenter. Simple carpenter, 15 years of marriage, and that's what I was to her. What do we do now? Riley asked. Now we burn it all down. The next morning, I called my lawyer. David Chang had been handling my business contracts for 10 years. He was honest, thorough, and specialized in screwing over people who tried to screw his clients. Jesse, this contract is a disaster. If you sign this, you'll lose everything. I already signed it. Silence on the other end of the line. David, are you there? Unfortunately, yes. Jesse, what were you thinking? I was thinking my wife and her boyfriend are trying to steal my business, and I wanted to give them enough rope to hang themselves. I explained the situation, the affair, the financial records Cody had uncovered, Brandon's history of business fraud. This is actually good news, David said. The contract was signed under fraudulent pretenses. We can void it and pursue criminal charges. I don't want criminal charges. I want something better. What's that? I want them to destroy each other. That afternoon, I went to the bank and cleaned out our joint savings account. $63,000 moved to a new account in my name only. Then I stopped by the gym. Tessa was training a client, all smiles and motivation. I watched her through the window, remembering when I used to be proud of her ambition. Now it just looked like greed. Jesse. She finished with her client and came over. What brings you by? Just wanted to see my investment. She laughed. Our investment? We're partners now. Right. Partners. I walked around the gym, examining the equipment I'd helped her buy, the mirrors I'd installed, the floors I'd refinished. How much of this would be mine in 30 days? Tessa, I need to ask you something. Of course. If something happened to the shop, if I lost everything, would you still want to be married to me? Her expression softened. Jesse, where's this coming from? Just curious. Of course I'd still want to be married to you. We're a team. A team. While she was planning to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. Good to know. That evening, Brandon called. His voice was tense, worried. Jesse, we need to talk. What about... There might be a problem with our partnership. What kind of problem? Can you meet me at the shop tonight around 9? Sure. I arrived early and waited in the dark. Brandon pulled up in his Mercedes, looking around nervously before getting out of the car. He knocked on the door like he was afraid someone might be watching. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I turned on the lights. The shop looked the same as always. Workbenches covered with projects, tools hanging on pegboards, the smell of wood and possibility. What's the problem, Brandon? I got a call today from the state licensing board. They want to interview me about my business practices. That doesn't sound good. It's probably nothing, but it might delay our timeline. I wanted to give you a heads up. Delay how long? Maybe a few weeks, just until I clear up some paperwork issues. I nodded thoughtfully. Brandon, can I ask you something? Of course. How many businesses have you helped restructure? Dozens. Why? And how many of those owners are still running their businesses? Brandon's smile faltered. Jesse, what are you getting at? I'm just curious about your success rate. My clients are very satisfied with the results. I'm sure they are. I picked up a hammer from the workbench. This was my father's hammer. He taught me everything I know about carpentry with this tool. That's nice. He used to say that you could tell a lot about a man by watching him work with his hands. Honest work creates honest men. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was... I set the hammer down. He also taught me that some people will smile to your face while they pick your pocket. Brandon's face went pale. Jesse, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Have there been? Because I've been doing some research on your business practices. Turns out you've been running the same scam on small business owners for 3 years. That's not true. Seduce the wife, steal the business, disappear with the money. You're like a one-man wrecking crew for middle-class families. Brandon backed toward the door. I think I should go. Why? We were just getting to know each other. Jesse, you're upset. I understand that. But you signed a legal contract. There are consequences for backing out now. Consequences like what? Legal action, breach of contract suits. You could lose everything. I could lose everything anyway. At least this way I go down fighting. Brandon's composure finally cracked. You stupid bastard. Do you have any idea what you're messing with? Enlighten me. I've destroyed bigger men than you. Small-town carpenters who thought they were smart enough to play with the big boys. And how did that work out for them? They lost everything. Businesses, houses, families. All because they couldn't recognize a good opportunity when it was handed to them? Like the opportunity to let you sleep with my wife. The question hung in the air like sawdust after a rough cut. Brandon straightened his tie. I don't know what you're talking about. Room 247 at the Sunset Motel, every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 months. You've been getting quite an education in customer service. You're delusional. Am I? I pulled out my phone and played the recording Riley had made. Brandon's voice filled the shop, talking about liquidating assets and splitting profits. His face went white. You recorded us? I recorded everything. The affair, the financial fraud, your plans to steal my business, all of it. You can't use that in court. It's illegal. Maybe. But it's not illegal to send copies to your ex-wives, is it? Or to the state licensing board? Or to post them on social media? Brandon lunged for the phone. I stepped aside and he crashed into the workbench, sending tools scattering across the floor. You son of a witch. He came at me again, this time with a screwdriver in his hand. I grabbed my father's hammer and brought it down on his wrist. He screamed and dropped the tool. Jesus Christ, you broke my wrist. Probably just sprained. You'll live. Brandon cradled his injured arm. You're insane. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'll show them the recording. He stared at me, finally understanding that he'd been outplayed by the simple carpenter. What do you want? I want my contract back. I want my $50,000, and I want you to disappear. I can't just... You can, and you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man Brandon Hart really is. 20 minutes later, he was gone. The contract was torn up, the check was voided, and my business was mine again. All it had cost me was a marriage that was already dead. I called Tessa and told her to meet me at the house. We needed to talk. She arrived 30 minutes later, still in her gym clothes, looking confused and worried. Jesse, what's wrong? Brandon called and said there was some kind of misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? That's one way to put it. I led her into the living room and sat down across from her. She perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to run. Tessa, how long have you been sleeping with Brandon? The question hit her like a physical blow. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, denial, guilt, anger. I don't know what you're talking about. Room 247, the Sunset Motel, 6 months of Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Her shoulders sagged. How did you find out? Does it matter? Jesse, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You've had plenty of practice lying to me. Tears started down her cheeks. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just developed. Well, you were stealing my money. We weren't stealing anything. We were investing in our future. Our future. Tessa, you were planning to divorce me next week. Her face went white. How could you possibly know that? Because I know everything. The affair, the business scam, your plans to liquidate my shop and run off to Florida with your boyfriend. She stood up and started pacing. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You and Brandon cooked up a scheme to steal my business. The affair was just a bonus. That's not true. Which part? The part where you've been screwing him for 6 months, or the part where you signed papers to steal my shop? Tessa stopped pacing. The papers were just a business arrangement. A business arrangement that would have left me with nothing. You would have been compensated. For 40% of my own business. Jesse, you don't understand how these things work. The shop was holding you back. With proper management, it could have been worth 10 times what you were making. Worth 10 times more to who? You and Brandon? To all of us. I laughed, and the sound was uglier than I'd intended. There is no us, Tessa. There hasn't been for a long time. She sat back down, tears flowing freely now. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? I thought maybe you'd see the potential, that you want to be part of something bigger. Something bigger than a marriage? Something bigger than this small-town life? There it was. The truth she'd been hiding for years. I wasn't enough for her. My shop wasn't enough. The life we'd built together wasn't enough. So, you decided to trade me in for a newer model. Brandon understands my ambitions. Brandon understands how to steal from people who trust him. You don't know him like I do. I know he's been running this scam for 3 years. I know he's stolen money from dozens of families. And I know he's already moved on to his next target. Tessa's face crumpled. What are you talking about? Check your bank accounts, Tessa. See how much of your money disappeared in the last 24 hours. She grabbed her phone and logged into her banking app. I watched her face change as she scrolled through the transactions. He cleaned out the business account. All $37,000, plus whatever he could grab from your personal accounts. But we had plans. You had plans. Brandon had a bank account in the Cayman Islands. She stared at the phone like it might change the numbers if she looked hard enough. This can't be happening. Welcome to the real world, Tessa. Turns out your boyfriend was using you the same way you were using me. I have to call him. Good luck with that. His phone's been disconnected. She tried anyway, listening to the automated message that told her the number was no longer in service. Then she tried his office. Also disconnected. He's gone, I said. Probably on a plane to somewhere without extradition treaties. Tessa collapsed back onto the couch, her whole world crashing down around her. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, almost. What am I going to do? I don't know. That's not my problem anymore. Jesse, please, we can work this out. We can start over. No, we can't. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. You made $37,000 worth of mistakes, plus 6 months of screwing another man, plus trying to steal my business. I'll pay you back. With what? Your boyfriend cleaned you out. She started crying again, big ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I lost everything. Yeah, you did. What about Riley? What about our family? You should have thought about that before you decided to destroy it. I stood up to leave. There was nothing left to say. Jesse, wait. I turned back. What? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. The next morning, I drove to the gym. Tessa's car was already there, but the lights were off inside. I used my key to let myself in. She was sitting at her desk, staring at a pile of bills and bank statements. When she looked up, her eyes were red and swollen. The electricity's being shut off tomorrow, she said. That's what happens when you don't pay your bills. I can't make payroll. I had to let everyone go. The gym felt different without the usual bustle of trainers and clients, just empty space and expensive equipment that nobody could afford to maintain. Tessa, I need you to sign something. I put divorce papers on her desk. She looked at them like they might bite her. You filed already? This morning. What are you asking for? Nothing. Keep the gym, keep the house, keep whatever's left in your accounts. I just want out. She signed without reading the papers. What was the point? She had nothing left to fight for. Where will you go? She asked. I'm buying old Murphy's garage downtown, turning it into a new shop. Starting over? Starting fresh. As I walked towards the door, she called my name one last time. Jesse? Yeah? For what it's worth, you were a good husband. I was. Too bad you weren't a good wife. Riley was waiting for me outside, leaning against my truck with a backpack slung over her shoulder. How did it go? It's over. Good. Mom called this morning. She wanted to know if I'd come stay with her. What did you tell her? I told her I'd rather live in a cardboard box with you than a mansion with her. That might be an option for a while. Starting over isn't going to be easy. Dad, you built one business from nothing. You can do it again. She was right. I'd started with a hammer and a dream once before. I could do it again. Besides, Riley said, someone needs to keep you out of trouble. What makes you think I'm going to get in trouble? Because you're already planning your next move against Brandon Hart. I looked at my daughter, 16 years old, and she could read me like a blueprint. What makes you say that? Because I know you, and because I've been tracking his credit cards. Riley, he's in Miami staying at the Fontainebleau Hotel under the name Robert Hartwell. Apparently, he's not very creative with aliases. How did you... I hacked his email before he disconnected it, downloaded everything, financial records, client lists, personal correspondence. Dad, this guy's been running the same scam across 6 states. Riley, that's illegal. So is fraud. So is adultery. So is destroying families for profit. She had a point. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Brandon Hart needs to meet some of his previous victims, face to face. That evening, I called Cody. Please tell me you're not planning something stupid, he said. Define stupid. Anything involving you, a plane ticket, and that smug bastard who was screwing your wife. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about justice. Those are the same thing with different marketing. Cody, how many other families has this guy destroyed? According to Riley's research, at least 12 in the past 3 years. And how many of those families got their money back? None. So what's stopping him from doing it again? Nothing, I suppose. Then we stop him. We? You, me, and Riley. Road trip to Miami. Cody was quiet for a long moment. This is insane. Probably. When do we leave? We drove through the night, taking turns at the wheel. Riley navigated and researched, turning my truck into a mobile command center. By the time we reached Florida, she'd compiled a complete dossier on Brandon's activities. He's been busy, she said, reading from her laptop. 3 new victims in the past 2 weeks, a bakery in Orlando, a landscaping company in Tampa, and a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. Same pattern? Exactly the same. Seduce the wife, steal the business, disappear with the money. How much this time? $215,000. I whistled. Brandon had upgraded his operation since leaving Kansas. There's more, Riley said. He's planning something big, a real estate development scam in the Bahamas. He's looking for investors. How much? $5 million. Cody shook his head. This guy doesn't think small, does he? Guys like Brandon never do, I said. They keep pushing until someone pushes back. We checked into a motel near the beach and spent the rest of the day planning. Riley had identified 6 of Brandon's previous victims who lived within driving distance of Miami. If we could get them together, maybe we could do something the police had failed to accomplish. The first stop was an auto repair shop in Homestead. The owner, Luis Morales, was a man about my age with grease under his fingernails and anger in his eyes. Brandon Hart, he said, spitting into the dirt. That son of a witch cost me everything. Tell me what happened. Same thing that happened to you, I bet. He seduced my wife, convinced her to invest our savings in some business expansion best, then disappeared with $60,000. Did you call the police? Of course I called the police. They said it was a civil matter. Told me to get a lawyer. Did you? With what money? Hart cleaned us out. Luis wiped his hands on a dirty rag. My wife left me after that. Took the kids and moved back to Cuba. Said she couldn't live with the shame. How would you like a chance to get him back? Luis's eyes lit up. What did you have in mind? By evening, we'd contacted 4 more victims. Each had the same story. A trusted consultant, a seduced spouse, a stolen business, and a family destroyed. Together, Brandon had stolen nearly $500,000 from these 5 families alone. So what's the plan? Asked Maria Santos, whose catering business had been destroyed by Brandon's schemes. We're going to give him a taste of his own medicine, I said, meaning, we're going to con the con man. The Fontainebleau Hotel was exactly the kind of place Brandon would choose. Expensive, flashy, full of wealthy tourists who might be interested in investment opportunities. We found him at the pool bar, working on his tan and chatting up a woman old enough to be his mother. That's him, Riley said. Brandon looked relaxed, confident. He was wearing a white linen shirt and gold chains, like a movie villain on vacation. His injured wrist was wrapped in an expensive-looking brace that probably cost more than most people made in a week. How do you want to play this? Cody asked. Simple. We walk up and introduce ourselves. All of us? All of us. We approached the bar casually, like old friends meeting for drinks. Brandon didn't notice us until we were standing right behind him. "Brandon Hart," I said. He turned around and his face went white when he saw me. "Jesse, what are you doing here?" "Thought I'd take a vacation. Florida's nice this time of year." "How did you find me?" "Lucky guess?" I gestured to the others. "I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. Luis Morales, Maria Santos, David Kim, Jennifer Walsh, and Tommy Patterson. I think you know them." Brandon's eyes darted from face to face, recognizing each of his victims. The woman he'd been chatting with looked confused and slightly afraid. "Excuse me," she said, gathering her purse. "I think I'll find another table." Brandon watched her go, then turned back to us. "I don't know what you people want, but this is maltreatment." "Is it maltreatment to say hello to an old business partner?" asked Luis. "We're not partners." "No, you're right. Partners share profits, you just steal them." Brandon stood up, trying to maintain his composure. "I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." "Has there been?" I said. "Because we've been comparing notes and it seems like you've been running the same scam on all of us." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Room 247 at the Sunset Motel. Sound familiar?" Brandon's face flushed red. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, we can." Riley stepped forward with her laptop. "I've got financial records, email correspondence, and recorded conversations that prove you've been defrauding small business owners across 6 states. That evidence was obtained illegally. Maybe, but it's still evidence." "What do you want?" "We want our money back," said Maria. "I don't have your money." "Then we want justice." Brandon looked around the bar, probably calculating his chances of making it to the elevator before we could stop him. "There's no point in running," I said. "We know where you live, where you work, who you're planning to scam next. This is extortion. No, this is business. The same kind of business you've been running for 3 years. I could call hotel security." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'd be very interested in your guest registration. Robert Hartwell, right? Using fake names is a federal crime." Brandon sat back down, finally understanding that he was trapped. "What do you want from me?" "We want you to make things right," said David Kim. "And how exactly am I supposed to do that?" "Wire transfers," said Riley. "You're going to return every dollar you stole from these families." "That's impossible. The money's already been spent." "Then you'll have to get creative." Brandon laughed bitterly. "You people have no idea how this works. You can't just demand money back. There are legal processes, paperwork, procedures." "Screw the procedures," said Tommy Patterson. "You destroyed my family. My wife left me because of what you did. Your wife left you because she couldn't handle failure." Tommy lunged forward, but Luis grabbed his arm. "Easy, brother. Violence won't solve anything." "Won't it?" Tommy shook free. "This bastard needs to pay for what he's done." "And he will," I said, "but not like this." Brandon seemed to relax slightly. Finally, someone with sense. "No, he's going to pay exactly like this, in front of everyone." I nodded to Cody, who pulled out a small video camera. "What's that for?" Brandon asked. "Documentation. We're going to record your confession." "I'm not confessing to anything." "Then we're going to record you refusing to take responsibility for destroying 6 families. And then we're going to post it online," added Riley. "Social media, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. You can't do that." "Sure we can. It's called free speech." Brandon looked around the bar again. Other guests were starting to notice our confrontation. A few were even holding up their phones, recording everything. "This is insane." "This is justice," said Maria. "The kind the courts couldn't give us." "Fine." Brandon pulled out his phone. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth," I said. "All of it." For the next 20 minutes, Brandon Hart confessed to 3 years of fraud, theft, and emotional destruction. He detailed his methods, named his victims, and admitted to stealing nearly $2 million from families across the southeastern United States. "Are you satisfied?" he asked when he finished. "Not quite," I said. "Now you're going to make it right. I told you, I don't have the money. Then you'll have to earn it back." "How?" "The same way the rest of us do with honest work." Brandon laughed. "You expect me to get a job?" "I expect you to work until every family you destroyed gets their money back. That could take years. Then you better get started." We left Brandon sitting at the bar, staring at his phone like it might tell him how to escape the mess he'd created. But there was no escape. The video was already uploaded, already spreading across social media. By tomorrow, everyone would know what kind of man Brandon Hart really was. The drive back to Kansas felt different, lighter somehow. We'd accomplished something the police and courts couldn't do. We'd held a criminal accountable for his crimes. "Do you think he'll actually pay anyone back?" Riley asked. "Probably not," I said. "But at least he won't be able to hurt anyone else." "The video's already got 50,000 views," Cody said, checking his phone. "Comments are brutal." "Good. Maybe the next woman who Googles his name will think twice before trusting him." We stopped for lunch in Alabama, celebrating our victory with gas station hot dogs and energy drinks. It wasn't much, but it felt like a feast. "So what now?" asked Cody. "Now we go home and rebuild." "Think Tessa will try to come back?" "Doesn't matter. That bridge is burned." "Good," said Riley. "You deserve better than someone who would sell you out for a few $1,000s and some empty promises." She was right. I did deserve better. And for the first time in months, I believed I might actually find it. We reached Kansas just as the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and gold over endless fields of wheat. Home. It looked different now that I wasn't sharing it with a woman who wanted to destroy everything I'd built. Riley and I moved into a small apartment above Murphy's old garage, while I converted the ground floor into my new shop. It wasn't much, but it was ours. No lies, no betrayal, no hidden agendas, just a father and daughter starting over together. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Tessa kept the house and the gym, though she had to sell both to pay off Brandon's debts. Last I heard, she was working as a personal trainer at a chain gym in Topeka, making $12 an hour and living in a studio apartment. I felt bad for her sometimes. Late at night, when the guilt tried to creep in, I'd remember the woman I'd fallen in love with 17 years ago. But then I'd remember the woman who'd tried to steal my business and destroy my family, and the guilt would disappear. 6 months after Brandon's confession went viral, I got a call from a lawyer in Miami. "Mr. Keller, this is Robert Chen with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to talk to you about Brandon Hart." "What about him?" "We're building a federal case against him. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. Your video gave us the evidence we needed to move forward. Good. We'll need you to testify at his trial." "When?" "Next month. We'll cover all your expenses, of course." "I'll be there." The trial lasted 3 days. Brandon looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, less dangerous somehow. The federal prosecutor played our video for the jury, along with financial records and testimony from a dozen victims. The defense tried to paint Brandon as a misunderstood entrepreneur who'd made some poor decisions. The jury wasn't buying it. Guilty on all counts. 15 years in federal prison, plus restitution to his victims. After the verdict, I stood outside the courthouse with Riley and Cody watching the news crews pack up their equipment. "Justice," said Riley. "Finally. Dad, I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For not giving up, for fighting back, for showing me that good people can win sometimes. We got lucky. No, we got smart, and we got even." A year later, Keller Custom Carpentry was thriving again. Word had spread about the carpenter who'd taken down a con man, and suddenly everyone wanted to hire the guy who fought back against fraud and won. I hired 3 employees, including Tommy Patterson, one of Brandon's victims, who'd lost his contracting business in Florida. We worked well together, bonded by shared experience and a mutual understanding of what it meant to rebuild from nothing. Riley started her senior year of high school with early acceptance letters to 3 universities. She'd decided to study computer science and criminal justice, planning a career in cybercrime investigation. "Someone needs to catch the next Brandon Hart before he destroys more families," she said. She was right. There would always be predators looking for easy marks, but there would also be people willing to fight back. On a warm Thursday evening in September, exactly 2 years after I'd first discovered Tessa's affair, I was working late in the shop when someone knocked on the front door. It was Paige, Tessa's former best friend and accomplice. She looked older, tired, like the weight of her guilt had been wearing her down. "Jesse, I know you probably don't want to see me." "You're right, I don't. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." "Little late for that, don't you think?" "I know, but I needed to say it anyway." She turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, Tessa regrets what she did. She asks about you sometimes. Tell her I said she can regret it all she wants. Doesn't change anything." "I will." After she left, I locked the shop and walked outside. The Kansas sky was clear and full of stars, the kind of night that made you believe anything was possible. My phone buzzed, text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Keller, my name is Sarah Mitchell. I think my husband is planning to steal my business. Can you help me?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. When can we meet? Some fights never end. They just find new battlefields. But that was fine with me. I'd learned something important over the past 2 years. Good people don't have to be victims. Sometimes they can be the ones who fight back. Sometimes they can even win. I walked back into the shop, turned on the lights, and got back to work. There was always another project to finish, another problem to solve, another person who needed help standing up to the people who wanted to tear them down. In the corner, my father's hammer hung on its hook, waiting for the next job, ready for whatever came next, just like me.